This screencast lecture introduces you to the provisions of UCC Section 2207. This section of the code establishes rules for forming contracts in situations where the parties' written or oral communications aren't identical. As we've seen, a battle of the forms can produce arbitrary and unpredictable results. The last shot doctrine, in particular, creates perverse incentives to draft unnecessary and unproductive forms, and to behave strategically in contract negotiations. The drafters of the Uniform Commercial Code sought to solve this problem. Section 2207 pointedly rejects both the mirror image rule and last shot doctrine. Let's focus first on the comparatively simple scenario in Ionics against Elmwood sensors. Think about how best to describe how Ionics and Elmwood negotiated this deal. What did each of them say to the other, and on what terms did they insist? Please pause the video now to think about these questions and write down your concise answers. So were you able to remember what the parties demanded? Or did you find the relevant facts in the opinion? In the simplest possible terms, Ionics sent a purchase order and letter saying that any sale would be on its terms, including full remedies. Elmwood sent an acknowledgement before shipment saying any sale would be on its terms. This acknowledgement form also included standard language disclaiming warranties and limiting remedies. Under the First Circuit's then prevailing precedent of rotolith, Elmwood would surely have won. That weak and misguided decision applied the last shot doctrine to a very similar case. You almost have to feel sorry for Elmwood. They were suckered into litigating this case by the expectation that rotolith would control. But the Ionics court decides, quite correctly, that rotolith must die, and so this 32-year-old precedent falls like a rotten tree limb. On the facts of Ionics, the result under Section 2207 is crystal clear. Both parties insisted on their terms and thereby objected to the terms of the other. But their conduct, delivery and payment, recognized the existence of a contract. Thus, under Section 2207(3), the terms are those on which the writings of the parties agree, plus the code defaults. The consequences for Elmwood are dire, because the code defaults include extensive warranties and full remedies. You may want to pause the lecture here to let this analysis sink in a bit. Now we'll look more broadly at the structure of Section 2207. I know no better way to understand this section than to work through each option. I've prepared a few diagrams to help you follow the three paths to enforcement. First, under the first clause of Section 2207(1), an unconditional acceptance or confirmation operates as an acceptance, even though it includes additional or different terms. The acceptance forms a contract. As you can see, this subsection of Section 2207 rejects the mirror image rule. Then we look to Section 2207(2) to decide what to do with the additional terms. Between merchants, they become part of the contract unless the offer is expressly limited to its terms, the additional terms materially alter the agreement, or the other party has already objected or rejects them. For non-merchants, silence or objection operates to reject the proposed terms. Thus, only an express agreement to the additional terms adds them to the contract. So, we're left with the original offer, plus any terms added under Section 2207(2), plus the code defaults for any gaps in the agreement. Second, under the second clause of section 2207(1), you can make your acceptance expressly conditional on the other party agreeing to your additional or different terms. If you do this, your response becomes a counteroffer, and you've recreated the mirror image rule by contract. If the other party expressly agrees to your proposal, then the new terms will govern. If not, then no contract has been formed under this route. Thus, it's only if the other party agrees to your proposed terms that we can form a contract under this alternative. But suppose that the parties haven't formed a contract by unconditional acceptance under option 1, or by agreeing to the terms proposed in a conditional acceptance under option 2. What happens if they nevertheless go on to deliver the goods, pay the purchase price, and accept that payment? In other words, suppose that the parties' conduct recognizes the existence of a contract. This is ionics. Their writings haven't formed a contract, but their conduct recognizes the existence of a contract. So the third option provides, under section 2207(3), that the terms are now everything on which the writings agree, plus the code defaults to fill any gaps. Notice that this rule rejects the last shot doctrine and rejects the approach of rhodolith. I would encourage you to review this screencast lecture and the accompanying diagrams until you feel comfortable with these provisions. Thanks for listening.